Hello, everyone. My name is Priya Patra, and I am the lead of the Women Power of Network. And we do have our other leads on the call today. We do have Cecilia Bogi. Cecilia, would you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you were, and have a good day. And we are celebrating today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that as well. Yes, and everyone, we are celebrating a third birthday today, and we have some special guests on the call today to help us to celebrate this wonderful occasion and also help us to say hello to 2023 by setting our goals and give some clarity on what we want to achieve in 2023. And we all know the past few weeks have not been very good, especially for the IT giants like Google and Amazon. And I'm from the IT industry, so I am nervous every day. But then, how do we ensure that we put our best foot forward? We set the proper goals for ourselves. And how do we ensure that we add value to the organization that we work for? So, mainly, I think we will stick to this theme for discussion today. But yes, before that, say hello to each other, say hello to 2023, say hello to everyone who is there on the call by taking the Menti poll, and the code is there on your screen, 81821007. Let us know from which part of the world you have joined in today. And I'm seeing lots of people still joining in, which is good. So I think we're going to have a grand party today. What do you think, Cecilia?
I'm sure. I'm
Mute.
sure, Priya. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
The best way we yes.
Yes. So yes, we are saying hello to 2023. And as we said, this is our third year. We were born on Jan 26, 2020. And that was the first time that we met physically. Okay. And I think that was the last time because in fact, we understood the power of the virtual world. And that's why we went virtual. And this is our community, our vision, mission, and values. And of course, our vision is to empower everyone, not only women, but of course, this is women-centric community, but also men are also welcome with the proper skills to transform the future. And we say that you don't need to become an expert to cheer each other up or to support each other up, but anyone can help each other. And that's why we say being good enough is just amazing. We do power up because when such good enough people come together, we definitely power each other up. And we are a huge community to say. We have two groups, LinkedIn and Facebook. And just today morning, I was checking, we had around 858 members. Very exciting, isn't it? And cutting across the globe. Obviously, this is possible because we are virtual. And occasionally, we do meet up with each other in some common conference or a common business trip. So far, I have met Cecilia last year in Las Vegas in a PMI Global Conference. But we knew each other very well because we have been working with each other for the last, I think, 2 years, Cecilia.
Yes, Priya, almost 2 years. Yes.
All right. So this is what I said. We just met for the first time in 2020 when we did our visioning exercise. And then this was our 2021 conference that we had. It was about thinking how do we move towards a new beginning. And 2022, we thought how do we go upwards and onwards and upwards. And Lee Lambert is our mentor and our supporter. So he does support us and provides us with advice how to make this community as vibrant as ever. All right, so that was a recap of the journey. If Alufunke is there, Alufunke, are you there?
Hello, Priya. I'm here.
Hey,
Hey,
Alufunke. Yeah.
hey, hi.
Hello.
Hello,
And
Cecilia. Hi. Hi,
yeah,
everybody.
Hi.
welcome,
Amazing.
welcome. And we want to introduce the newest member in our team, Alufunke Adio. If you all know, we have a newsletter which is published every month. And Olufunke has graciously accepted our invite to be the editor of that newsletter. So, Olufunke, over to you to say a few words about yourself.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's quite interesting to be in a community of powerful ladies and women. Yeah. So pleasure to be here. I actually function in human resource. Just a little about my background, and I've had a history in consulting, and at the moment I run my own consultancy firm where I focus on culture, culture transformation. I also do a lot of work around productivity, corporate, workforce learning and development and stuff like that. Quite specifically, I feel like I'm on a mission to normalize agile values and principles across organizations. So that's a huge focus for what I do in my consulting. And it's quite interesting. I've done some work in editing or as an editor prior to this role. So hopefully I'm able to bring on some experience as well along those lines to the role here with the Empowered publication. So nice to be here. Nice to be
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adio. Alufunke Adio, and welcome to the team. We just do a small recap of what we did in the last event, which was in November 2022. And Mariana is suddenly sick today. She could not join us, but we spoke about sustainability and how leadership can enable sustainability. So yeah, it was a panel discussion with speakers and experts in sustainability from across the globe. And this is a small recap done by Feni, our most talented Feni, who recaps everything very visually. And we will have a recap of this event as well. And it will be shared with you, Shelby, as a gift from our side. And yes, with this, Grace, over to you to introduce the mentor of the day and take this forward.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Priya, I don't know if you could pass this across to someone else. I'm still dealing with some domestic injuries my kids have.
No problem.
And that's why I've not been able to come on camera. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. We are agile and we will inspect and adapt. And let me introduce Lee. Are you there on the call? Okay, well, looks like he's sleeping. We already have Shelby on the call today. And as Shelby is a known name in our Agile community. She is Agile coach and award-winning Agile Scrum Master and a product owner. She is an enterprise Agile and transformation coach, facilitator, servant leader, teacher, and of course an inspirer as well. She focuses on improving enterprise leadership teams through coaching and definitely helping leadership to unknot difficult and multiple departments problems. Oh God, Shelby, we really need you in our organization as well. She is passionate about helping organizations to transform to improve service delivery to customer and improve the working lives of people within the organization. And with this, Shelby, over to you to say hi to our community members, and then I will explain the format of this session.
No, thank you, Priya. Thank you very, very much. And also thank you to Grace, who I've connected with personally on another conference, who is my little baby sister, who I love dearly. But hi, everybody. I am Shelby. Thank you for everything that you said, but I'm none of that. I'm just somebody who loves agility and loves what it can do for organizations. I've been working in this space coming up to around about 20 years. I started my life as actually as a program manager, and then fell into agility and fell into product ownership, and then into Scrum Mastery and on to an agile coach. I worked from everybody from Apple to all the big major banks that you probably would see in the UK and abroad. And now I work predominantly I've been working predominantly in the fintech sector, startup sector, and also for automotive. I'm currently supporting the transformation team with the executives in Jaguar Land Rover. So that's where I currently am. More importantly, I have a major focus on empowering women in our world. I don't believe it's done enough. I don't believe women get the ladder up the steps that men do. And I'm also passionate about the community that I live in. I'm all about knowledge sharing, and everything that I learn, I like to pass on to everybody else. So I'm a great conference speaker. I will speak to the hilt about the power of agility, what it can do for you personally and for your own personal life, and the values and the beliefs. And then I go in, as you said, and not some organizational issues that executives have at their C-suite level and above. But more importantly, they are, the frameworks that we love in agility are there to help and support people. And that's where my major passion lies. Supporting you, supporting me, supporting everybody, even my family are very agile. And I just love sharing. And that's what you'll hopefully get from me today.
All right, thank you, Shelby.
My
And
pleasure.
Lee is just in time. So Lee,
Good morning.
good morning. We were thinking you have
Good
got to
morning,
sleep.
Lee.
Finally. Okay, so Lee Lambert again. We don't need to introduce him. You have heard him, you have seen him in our community every time in our each and every meeting. And yeah, he's here to help us today to help us to formulate our goals, say hello to 2023. And I will still talk a little about Lee. Lee is the founder of PFP, and I think he has 53 years experience in project management. Am I correct, Lee?
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm a little late here. I had experienced a travel day from hell yesterday, and I
Okay.
literally, I just woke up. This is unheard of. It's never happened before. So, but when I see this many people on here, I'm glad I was able to wake up and join.
Okay, and Lee Lambert is known in our PMI community. He is honored. He is a PMI fellow. He has trained about 50,000 students, 3 countries, and he is traveling. I think every month to some state, some city, some country to share his knowledge. We are very, very fortunate to have Lee also today on this call. And with this, we will get started. We have actually asked our audiences to share some questions for our mentors, mentor of the day. And we do have a few questions, and I will shoot them out to you one by one. And then we will also keep taking questions from the chat. You could also unmute yourself and ask your question to, to this distinguished panel that we have today here. Not every day do you get to talk to such amazing mentors. So don't miss this opportunities for sure. So yes, the first question that I have here is setting goals, right? And many of us, especially in fact, even myself, right? Until few years ago, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my, career. I just took things that came on my stride, right? And with this changing economic conditions, it's even more difficult to set some goals for the year. So, Shelby, what do you think that we should focus on as leaders, right? Here we are not talking about agile coaches and Scrum Masters. We are talking about as leaders, as women leaders. What is that one or two things that you think that we should focus on in 2023?
So for me at the moment, my focus for 2023 and everybody that I'm mentoring or support, there's a couple of things. There's outcome agility. And what I mean by that is that everything that we do has an outcome. We just don't understand what that outcome means to us, because we are just we tend as human beings be in a flight mode, run along, and don't actually think about the outcome. But it's the process of what outputs we put into that to get that outcome of agility, your personal choice of agility that sits with yourself. So, your obvious goals that shouldn't be sky high in reach. So for me, I talk about sustainability and outcomes. The outcomes really need to be focused so that you can sustain it in the world that we all live in, and especially when you take that into your businesses and where you work.
Right, but how about personal agility? How do we,
So I do this in a number of different ways. I've got a Kanban board, and all my personal goals for the year go onto a Kanban board. The other thing I like to do is to take that time to sit down with his or her own personal agility and base it on the circumstances of our experience. So what didn't you achieve last year that you want to achieve this year normally tends to become my goals. And when I mentor people, I ask them that same question. What didn't you achieve last year, and what would you like to have done about it? What outcome would you have provided to yourself, especially given that people that I mentor are Scrum Masters or product owners, and I very much sit with them and say, well, okay, let's examine that and examine what that means and those traits. And then have you put the agility lens on it? Do you look at the courage, the value, the people, the impact that it has? And then how are you going to put that into your next sort of goals that you want to reach? More importantly, I don't ask them to do a yearly, like all things in agility, we don't set up big plans. I ask them to break them down into goals, into manageable bite-sized goals that they can achieve within a week, within a month. And we re-examine them once that month or week has passed. And that's what I advise on a personal. Personal agility is going to be unique, by the way, to everybody that decides to go through that process and use agility for their own personal goals.
Exactly. And I also follow this tip, a very excellent tip. Don't think about a goal which is way far ahead, but to break down into smaller milestones and see how you're progressing towards it.
Yeah.
And inspect and adapt. Yes. Thank you very much for that tip. Now over to Lee, if you are ready. I mean, I know that he is traveling, but he has joined in. So Lee, what do you think we as women should focus on as goals for 2023?
Yeah, I think building on what Shelby said, I think it's important from my perspective, at least, I think it's important to be real with ourselves. I think when we set goals, sometimes we set goals that are, I'll use the word optimistic. In fact, they're unrealistic. And then the problem with that is that then when you don't achieve them, it has a deflating impact on you individually. So I think realistic is one of the key that I use when I set my goals. Now, when I was younger, some of you weren't born when I was younger, is that I was very unrealistic. I mean, I set goals that looked at what I wanted to be and hoped to be, not what I realistically could be. So it was my first few years in the career business were kind of depressing because I didn't accomplish any of the goals that I set. Well, that's because I was unrealistic about the goals. And I think it's important. I love the agility thing. I just posted an interview we did about a new book called Personal Agility that Raji is completed, and I think it has the right idea. there's more than just work objectives that we need to set for goals. We need to set goals for personal performance, personal issues, personal communication skills, those kinds of things that ultimately then build into your ability to achieve a realistic and meaningful career. But my first 2 years were a little bit depressing. Now my goals are much easier to understand because I set goals for less than a year, less than 6 months in many cases. So when I think about this concept of agility, it's everywhere. It's taken over the world. The world has become an agile place if you want to be successful. So what you've got to do is build upon those. We used to talk about the idea of milestones in project management. And then we came up with this idea of intermediate objectives that one of our fellows used to call inch stones that we use to step towards a successful career. So don't look too far, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Don't set a goal that is so far out that it's difficult to achieve in the short term, because what I need as an individual is I need short-term feel good. I need things that make me feel like I'm actually getting somewhere. So when we use these objectives from the standpoint of short term, we get that sense of accomplishment that then builds our ability to become more adept at getting things done. So I think goal setting is a must. If you don't have goals, you don't get anything done. But the key is short-term goals. With an over-focus on long-term goals, you end up not accomplishing anything, which has a ripple effect for the next year and the next year. So set goals that are realistic, and set short-term goals that allow you to see that you're making progress in the short term.
Awesome. And Lee, what I hear is set realistic goals, and it should be more than your work objectives. Introspect, think about your personal, I wouldn't say issues, but how you want to develop yourself personally, and set short-term goals. So, yeah, and what I've heard from both of you, Shelby and Lee, is be agile. So do you think there is an option of not being agile at all? Shelby, over to you.
Sorry, I did jump in there. Yeah, listen, I love waterfall. I started my life as a project manager and a program manager, and I loved what that did at that time. But just as the world is moving and growing and technology is becoming advanced, we use agility because we do it in shorter iterations, so we're able to pivot. But it's the same with our personal style and a personal agility. There's this thing called emotional agility that's happening out in the world at the moment that I'm investigating and reading, trying to study more into. But having the openness to learn, and as Leah quite rightly said, learn and change in the short term is just as important that long-term plan. So let's not wipe it off. Let's not, waterfall and Prince 2 and those good and PMI have their place inside the world that we live in. What we have to do, though, as individuals is go, okay, so here's agility, but there's also that world. And so how do we live together? And actually, as people, we should learn together quite nicely. So it's about communication for me, so that they both can coexist and live together in the same world.
All right. So it is all about leverage the good things from both the worlds.
For sure.
That
Communicate.
is for sure. Yes. And I think if you don't communicate, even waterfall will not work. So, yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah. So, yes. And now I will stay with you, Shelby. Last week, right? Last weekend, I think we saw a lot of layoffs having been there for agile coaches. Now, agile coach, or it was like a silver bullet or golden bullet, people thought. So are we agile coaches, scrum masters not adding value? Why are we being laid off, in mass? Are we doing something wrong?
So I don't think we're doing something wrong, and I don't think the layoffs that are happening in the tech world. So if you look at Twitter and then you look at Capital One and Google, I think Elon Musk has definitely set the scene to cut back on lots of staff and has shouted from the rooftops that he didn't need 1,000 devs or scrum masters or product owners or such, and he's proven that can work. So other companies are looking at that and probably considering that's an option for them. Hence, I think that's what Capital One did. I also believe that from the Capital One stance, and I talked to the coaches that were there a couple of years ago, that they've actually been given some really bad advice. And we've all done that. We've all been, I've been in many organizations where companies have gone in before me and have given them some agility advice, and it's not, the narrative hasn't matched the company. So to be a good agilist, and certainly as a good coach, you have to understand the organization that you go into. I would never go into an organization and say, oh, you must do Scrum, or you must do Kanban, or you must do Waterfall. My problem is, the first thing I do as somebody that's in Agile is I go in, I understand the organization, I look at their problems, and then I sit down with them to have that conversation. That goes back to my previous point. Communication is key. And then I try to apply what's out in the Agile world, because there's lots of frameworks that sit under that Agile umbrella, as we know. So I think we're not doing anything wrong as a community. I just think, given our current climate of the world, whether that's the war in Ukraine, whether that is Elon Musk doing what he's done to Twitter, I just think that has a knocked on effect. I think if you're true to the values and the principles and you have that agile mindset, I think if you're working inside an organization, you should be able to have that conversation with the people that you work with and help them navigate the minefield that they're going through, because they'll be very confused. So go in, sit down and talk to the people that you work with, because I bet they are also looking at the work world and the news and seeing these layoffs and asking the very same questions. But I ask of all of you to go into your organization and say, how can I help you? And start with that.
Oh, yeah. So how can I help? Well, that applies to your peer, your community members, your organization, and, try to find out. And communication is the key. So yes, so now I will move to Lee again. Lee, do you think project managers are also in trouble with all these layoffs and changing economic conditions?
Yeah, I think the whole thing lines up with communication. I think what Shelby said is exactly right. We've become organizations focused on terminology. If you look at the agile concept, whether you're talking about titles of Scrum Master, I think we get hung up on titles sometimes. I think the key is fundamentally, just as Shelby said, what do we really need? And if you look at all these different things that are floating around, and I'm an old school guy, project management is project management. I think what we're calling it has gotten to be a little bit irrelevant to what it is we're trying to actually accomplish. So I think when you sit down and look at what is this project we're doing and what is it we need to achieve, and we can select individual components of these systems that work best for us. I think we've gotten way too hung up on, are we using Scrum? Are we using Agile? Are we using Disciplined Agile? Are we, we're using project management. And I think it's important for us to remember what the outcome is. What is it we expect to have happen by utilizing these concepts that we spend so much time trying to analyze what their component impact will be. I think once we do that, we have to formulate the approach that's going to add the most value. And I think at the end of the day, it's about communication. I'll be frank with you. I'm not a specialist in any of these areas. I'm a specialist in project management. And so if Kanban's going to add value to what I want to achieve, then I'll use some Kanban. I'm not going to say I'll use it exclusively. But the fact of the matter is, we've gotten too hung up on, are we using the the title that we've given Scrum and Agile and DA and all the things that are floating around right now, have we decided what's going to give us the best outcome, and then use that and communicate that. Communication is the key to all of this. My success, as limited as it's been, has been completely tied to communication. I don't brag about earned value. I don't brag about all the different types of approaches that I've used over my career. What I brag about are what are the outcomes we've achieved. And if we can do that with an open mind and not be what I call a cultist in whatever's the flavor of the day, I think we have a much higher probability of success. And I think people need to understand that they're free to voice their opinions on the usability of some of these concepts, and use those things that work not only for the project, but in our organization. If we've got an organization filled with cultists, we're going to have a cultist output. We need to be variable in what we use. I think in any given project, a large project that I've run in the past, I would suspect, without titles, I've used almost every one of these concepts that we have available to us today. So I think we need to look at them and decide which one will add the most value towards the outcome that we're hoping to achieve.
So try to, I think, introspect and find out what would actually add value, and whether it is Agile, whether it is Kanban, I don't know, it's any framework, and use it, leverage it accordingly. So good words of advice, Lee. Now I will pause for a moment, and Olufunke, if you can let us know if there is any question on the chat.
All right, absolutely. There is, I don't know, a comment or a question. I would just like to read it out. This is from Hilary, trusting that either Shelby or Lee will be able to speak to this. And Hilary says, as women and mothers, it seems like we often have to be super agile with our priorities, as they can change day to day based on what is happening with our kids and families. I think that's something that many of us can relate to. I was wondering if Shelby, would you want to speak to that first, or yeah?
Yeah, I can speak to that first for sure. Yeah, you know, I always say mothers are the superhuman agilists of us, right? Because they have to pivot at every single occasion, you know, from bandaging toes to feeding the kids at all various times to taking them to football lessons. So women are my superheroes. They definitely need to be super agile. And again, what works for you from a personal agility perspective, you have to change your stance. You know, if you're going to use agility, which I know I've seen many nurseries and many people I know in the industry that are mothers use agility. They have used the various different, like Lee said, use the various different topics to get the value of the outcome, to solve your problem that you have with your kids on the day. Yeah, but you are the greatest. You are the greatest super agilists that are out there.
Amazing. I think that's just quite profound, thinking about, I mean, women really are the greatest agilists ever, just because they have a lot to juggle. Yes?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shelby. Lee, would Lee be speaking to that, or do I, yes, could Lee just speak to that? It would be nice to hear your take on that as well.
Yeah, I will speak to that, because I think I'm biased here, but women and then add mothers to it. What the hell? How do you get everything done? That's the question. You know, we talk about planning. My wife of 55 years, I got a chance to see how women really work. And she was unbelievable in terms of, you know, and I mentioned to her before she passed a couple of years ago, you know, you're practicing Agile. And she said, the what? she said, what I'm practicing is doing what moms and mothers do, which then translates to doing what projects do. When I hire people, I'm gonna be honest with you here, I hire women almost every time because women have been pre-trained. They have been trained in project management. They just didn't know it. And so they've learned to prioritize. They've learned to shift gears, especially with children. You have to be very, very agile to accommodate the needs of the children. Well, so with that precursor of training, I find that women slide into a project management role with ease because you've already been trained. You don't know the terminology, you don't know what we call it, but the fact of the matter is you've learned to individually prioritize things as they occur and not be so rigid in your approach that you aren't able to make adjustments. Now, with women, the adjustments come not monthly, not weekly, not even daily. They come hourly. And so we've learned how to adjust our prioritization to the need of what's important right now. Whatever the quote fire drill of the day is, we've learned that we need to deal with that. And so from a women's standpoint, I think you all have a precursor to your careers just being women. And then when I add the mother side to that, well, hell, you're already prepared. I can teach you the terminology in a heartbeat, but you've learned through the process of what project managers also have to be able to do, and that is to prioritize and change on the run, not become so rigid in our plan that we work the plan rather than working the work. And so I think it's important to understand that ladies have this preordained capability of doing this and doing it extremely well. So the adaptation to project management becomes quite an easy one.
That's some good stuff there, Lee. A lot of points. You've made very strong points there. And Lee is practically reminding us that as women, we are project managers. Yeah. All right. So I'll just take, thank you, Lee. I'll just take a question here from Rivasi, and she says, considering the current volatility in the markets and layoffs across, what is the mindset professionals like us should continue or to develop? All right. I hope this is clear. I'll allow Lee to speak to this first, and then I'll be moving on to Shelby to shed some light on that. I hope the question is clear. So Rivasi is saying that there's a lot of volatility in the market, and considering the layoffs in particular, what type of mindset should professionals like us bring to the table?
Yeah, I know this is hard to think about realistically, but from my view, I've always looked at layoffs in a positive way, to tell you the truth, because I think what happens with layoffs, if you're wise, it forces you to prepare for the next step, and oftentimes layoffs lead to opportunities. They're not. We shouldn't. I mean, it's unfortunate we have layoffs. I've never experienced that in my 55 years, but the fact of the matter is, most of the time, layoffs are taken personally, and they shouldn't be taken personally. They generally are not personal. They're business decisions that need to be made. Well, what that means to me is, well, I better prepare better for the future, so that when business decisions require layoffs, my name doesn't come up. Now I know some of these are based on seniority, and that's a normal process. First, last in, first out. But the fact of the matter is, what that should do for you is say to yourself, what do I need to do to prepare so that this doesn't repeat itself? And I think at that point in time, career decisions get to be made. And in my particular case, I always had a buffer because I was always preparing for the next opportunity before the layoff, not after the layoff. But once you've had that layoff experience, don't take it personally. Don't think that it's about you as a person, because generally it's not. Look at it as an opportunity to say, what can I do to insulate myself from layoffs in the future? And that usually rolls out to be a training and education responsibility.
Again, amazing stuff. I mean, this is so good. This is really good. I want to just highlight something that Lee said, during his statement. He said, it's a matter of perception, all right? So let's not take it personal. I know that's difficult, yes, but let's not take it personal. Let's change perception and consider that this is a layoff, but it's also, it could be an opportunity. How can I annex? How can I access better opportunities? How can I prepare in the future and not to be that person who would be laid off, if I may put it that way? Thank you so much, Lee. I loved that. Shelby, yeah, what's your take on that?
Wow, I can't disagree with that. I mean, in my early career, I've been laid off and have taken it personally, and you do. That's human nature, and that's our biases that set in. But I think, for me, and especially because I adopted the agile mindset, it's a thought process. And as Lee said, we have to understand that it's not personal attack on us and our skills. It's a business decision, and therefore I think if we go through a process that involves understanding and collaborating with these people, do some self-learning and staying flexible to achieving our goals, by combining that and then moving into your next opportunities that's out there that you seek, you can then progress. And you might find that going into your next opportunity, which I can talk to that, I moved up a step in my career. I got promoted. It was another step, so it was another challenge. And I just think, that the volatility there in the market is lots of uncertainty. But if you're in the agile world, that's what we deal with. Our values are designed to deal with complex, uncertain environments, and we just then adapt and change to whatever that is for us and what it looks like as you move into your next challenge.
Amazing. So Shelby, I hear that personal agility thing coming to the table again, coming to the fore, where it's more of, okay, what's the next growth opportunity for me? Yes. You're always thinking about what are the options, the next option, and then the next option, all right, the next opportunity. Agility is such a powerful stuff, I think. Yeah,
totally.
Being personally agile, I think is amazing.
And what is our last value of the Agile Manifesto, right? We, as a coach, I teach you that it's to respond to change over following a plan. So if you had set yourself in your career a linear path on your career projection, we know that that's not how the world works. We know that things like redundancies or the reorgs happen in an organization. So you should respond to a change over following that plan.
Amazing. I love it. All right. I'll take this question from Rivathi. Priya, I hope we have a couple of minutes to take some questions, maybe 2 more questions. Yeah? All right.
Lots of time.
Amazing. All right, so this is also from Rivathi. She says, do you think whether trust towards the organization, meaning the organization that has done a lot of layoffs, all right? Do you think that the trust that within the organization would change, the trust level that employees have? Do you think it would change? Shelby, let's have your take on that.
Of course it does. I spoke to a couple of my friends who are actually work at Twitter, and they only work sort of like on the call. They answer tweets and they're in sort of like a call center environment, and their trust is gone because they naturally think, well, am I next? Am I going to be laid off next? And that is you know, that's a natural human reaction. That is going to happen. We just have to have the courage to embrace the change. And that's where I think, you know, sometimes we don't cope with that change. And I think intrinsically human beings, when a situation like this happens, redundancies, our trust automatically goes in the leaders that we have above us. It's true. It's a human nature thing.
Response. It's a human response. So on point. Lee, I will bring in a follow-up question to that, just to hear your take on this. Now that this is a normal, even almost something that is expected, that trust will nose dive in a situation like that. What would you advise leaders within the business to do to manage the distrust within the system when such a scenario occurs? Is there hope, or is it pointless? Can this be managed? Can this distrust?
No, I think there is hope, and I think it is helpless. Here's the thing. Organizational leaders have got to learn to quell the rumors by communicating clearly what's going on, what's happening, what's the future look like. The more you leave that to the rumor mill, the more impact it has on productivity. If you're in the throes of a potential layoff and you don't know for sure what's happening and when it's happening, you stop working and you start talking and you start rumor mills that say, this and that, and will I be next? Well, when you're worried about all that, you're not getting anything done. And so my advice to leaders is, when you've got a situation developing, keep people informed. Let people understand. Don't promise it won't be them. But what I'm saying is, the more I can take out the rumors, the more likely we'll continue to have productivity. And I think that's the issue. Leadership, I mean, it seems to me like, from what Shelby said, what I've said, what others have said, at the end of the day, it all comes back to communications. Am I clearly articulating what the future looks like in a way that is not threatening, but in a way that lets people understand the situation? And I think that's the key. I've been through a couple of these where productivity would go down by 30 and 40% simply because people were spending all their time talking about, am I next? And so we've got to really be able to communicate. Leaders don't do that effectively because this is not a fun conversation to have. This is not a positive, upbeat thing like we try to drill into people. This is a potential negative impact on the organization and or the individual. So communication will be at the key of whether people accept this and are willing to continue to work at their normal rate, not knowing whether they may get laid off, but knowing that organization understands what's going on and understands the attitude of the people.
Amazing. So we're back to communication again. And it's that thing that it's a reminder that communication is a big deal. It's easy to just look over.
I think she may have frozen, but yeah, I think I can follow up. But communication is very hard. I mean, we forget that it's not just about speaking. There are many layers to communication. Communication is listening, is your body language, and more importantly, back to Lee's point, businesses don't match the narrative. They say one thing and it doesn't match the narrative that the business and people that work in that business believe. Because again, down to the rumors that circulate and go around the business, they've got to ensure that the communication. My biggest phrase at the moment is your narrative matching to my executives? Is your narrative matching to your teams, to the people that work on the ground floor? Because if it's not, you've got no trust, you've got no buy-in, no support, And that's when you then see some of these big organizations also crumble, because it's a multitude of things that fall in. It's not just saying, oh yeah, you've got redundancies and we're laying this off and leaving it quiet. It's the same, and in reverse, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you are starting a brand new business as well, be clear and communicate what you want to achieve. Don't just go, yeah, I'm setting up a business and expect everybody to get on board with that, for sure. So communication is a real skill
Shelby,
to harness.
I'm glad you threw that word. I was just going to interrupt you and say the word that we're looking for is trust. Do we as employees, do we as workers trust our organization, trust our leadership? Because I think your point of when they say one thing and do another, that's a trust issue. I've used that term. I've turned it into an acronym, because in today's world, you have to have an acronym. So trust stands for tremendous results using simple techniques. And it is simple. This is not brain surgery. And so if we can build trust, then we are able to adjust and adapt. And now we're back to agility again. Can we really respond with a quick turnaround when a trust situation says that things are happening? And I think it's important for us to understand that word trust. Tremendous results using simple techniques.
Yes, we got that, Lee, and we are exhibiting agility again. Olufunke is gone because I think some issues, and Grace is here. So what do you, Grace, to take this forward?
Okay, so apologies. I think there's so much connection issues from our end here in Nigeria, so kindly bear with us. Okay, I'm sure she'll be back on the call. I don't see any question on the chat box again, but I think the question of communication and trust has been like a back and forth issue. I would like to ask, within team dynamics, I'm sure, I know trust is quite a very big issue. If you're going to have productivity up, how do we, okay, there's a question here. I think I'll just really give my own and take this one. It says there is very less women business leaders in the world. So when it's growth, the ratio, okay, it's also around the issue of having women leaders. What can we say about, probably ask this to Shelby, what has been your experience with those big orgs? I know you interact with a number of yes, and you always have your way, I see.
Grace, we've talked about this in previous work that we've done together, but it is hard for women inside of any kind of organization that they work in, especially if they want to seem to be getting to the top. So you either, classified as, non-childbearing women who are career aggressive and want to climb, or you are seen as very aggressive. And I certainly in my career have been told several times that my passion for agility is aggression. And I've often had to challenge that and turn it around. I think from my perspective, and certainly as I speak to women that want to climb the ladder, is I like to say be silent about it, because once you get to the top, that's more powerful than you screaming about it. You do not need to scream and shout as women, because you are powerful enough. You are in a very unique spot that, because people overlook you, you have the openness to learn and challenge and change, and you can crawl up that ladder silently to the march of your own beat. Corporations, they are the world that we live in, have always employed men. I don't think that's going to change, and I'm pretty certain Lee can talk to the organizations that he's definitely worked in and seen over his lifetime about women not being at the top. But the world is slowly changing. I mean, look at the USA. We have a woman that is second in command. Some of our big tech companies now have got women in high, C-suite positions. I certainly work in Jaguar Land Rover currently. There's a lovely, chief operating officer. She is marvelous. She is openness to challenge everything in the agility world, but also loves, traditional project management, because that's where she was born from. I think it's growing, maybe not at the rate. How do we challenge that? Ladies, be vocal. Go for your goals. Set them. Don't be frightened to get some knockbacks. and keep on reaching for where that, your goal, what we're saying, reach for your personal goal.
Wow, that's really a strong point. I'd ask this question, a follow-up from what you just said. So in your opinion and given your experience over the years, like I said, I've seen you, interact with big orgs, and you've certainly brought a number of them in while we're working. What very important skills, if you're going to talk to women, I'm sure we have a number of women here, if you're going to talk to women, speak to us. What skill do you think the very important one that should be up there that we should have when dealing with probably a space where you have more male-dominated leaders?
I think for me, it's just be clear and concise and communicate, but make it simple. Lots of women tend to go into organizations and have lots of, they kind of want to use big, elegant words and educational words to think that they are, in line with the same person that's alongside them. I go in with simplicity and I speak to you as I find you. I have no hierarchical judgment on who you are. You are not better than me. However, I have respect for you as a human being, and therefore I want a conversation with you. So let's have a conversation. So I tend to keep my language very simple, not complex, and break it down and ask lots of questions. I'm forever saying, I don't, the biggest trick in my world as a coach is I don't understand. So when I speak to executives, I don't understand, because if they tell me their problems, I'm like, well, okay, I don't understand. So keep telling me, because that way then I am going to get to the crux of what they are trying to solve for themselves. I don't understand is a very powerful phrase for when you go to speak to your executives, but just keep it simple and beautiful. And then badger them lots, Grace, as you know that we did when we had our last conference. Just be persistent.
Grace, can I comment here,
Yeah.
please?
Sure. I almost was going to ask you next, Lee.
Yeah, the thing about women have such a great opportunity right now, because not only are you qualified people as far as your capabilities are, but there's a tremendous amount of pressure right now to fill jobs with women. It's I'm not going to call it a quota system, but starts to look like it sometimes. That's an opportunity, ladies. It's a chance for you to capitalize on an environmental condition that opens up opportunities for you. So I always tell the women that I advise personally, is that you need to conduct yourself in what I call a passive aggressive way. And I don't want to be obnoxious. I don't want you to break down crying. I want you to put together a plan that is destined to get you where you want to be, and use an aggressive approach, but an aggressive approach that feels good when you're done. I think it's so important. I mean, frankly, if I were in a working world today, I wish I was a woman, because I think the opportunities, the chances for you are much better than they have been in the past. And I'm still not convinced that senior level management recognizes the power and the capability of women. I think some of the women are getting jobs for I don't care how you get the damn job. Once you get the job, you're going to perform. I have no reservation about that. So you have to have a plan. And I use passive aggression. I also use a term called inspirational manipulation. And if you can be an effective leader and inspire people, it gets you to where you want to be. In fact, I make a presentation regularly to chapters of PMI about this topic of inspirational manipulation. My position is this: it's your career, manipulate it. Make it be what you want. Don't wait for somebody to give you something. They're not going to do it. So passive aggression is a concept that, and I see some of the faces on this call that I talk with regularly, they have no problem being passive aggressive. And I think that's an important point that needs to be taken. into your plan for what your career is going to be.
Wow. We needed to hear that from Lee. I'm sure everybody, you had your pens down on your sheets or on your computer writing something. Thank you so much, Lee. Shelby, I don't know if you want to still be with us. I know today's your birthday. At the end of this event, we have to sing a happy birthday song to you. That's if you still be around.
No, it's okay,
Happy
Grace.
birthday.
Nobody needs to sing anything. I'm too old now.
Oh no, you have to. Happy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any more questions around agility, around
Yes,
emotional
yes.
intelligence? Okay.
Yes. I saw a question from Jean from PMI Kenya, and it's a comment first, and she says, yes, it is all about delivery. The various ways of working are great and there to enhance value delivery, but please talk some more on outcomes, career, and emotional agility.
Yeah, so from our perspective in the outcome, pretty much certainly it's the same across the board, but outcomes are what organizations want to achieve, right? So but and this is where we get very confused with outputs, because outputs are just the steps or the actions you need to take to achieve that overall outcome. So for example, I want to be the best leading e-commerce site in the world. That is a pure goal of an organization and it's an outcome. But there are a number of steps behind that the business needs to take to achieve it. And that is where people tend to be focused in certainly organizations I've been working with and over the years. They focus on the steps. I've got to get to the next gateway. I've got to get the next governance document signed off. I've got to get this done by X, Y, and Z date. I've got to do this, rather than saying, well, my outcome is to have the best platform. And I want to achieve that. That's my North Star, my goal. They normally concentrate more on those steps to get there. And so my goal, well, certainly from my perspective, I tend to want businesses to think about the outcomes before they think of the outputs and the steps that they need to achieve. Oh, and wow. Sorry, and I think then your next part of that question was emotional agility. Now, I'm learning about this myself. It's a whole new world to me, so I can't really talk very in depth to it. But from what I'm learning, it's about having the openness to learn and change and increase our emotional agility. It's aware of our emotional intelligence and the relationship that we have with agility, and the relationship that we have with others to provide. As Scrum Masters and product owners and coaches, we go in and we provide a service to get them to be adaptable, to change, to resonate, to cope with stuff and increase their agility perspectives to a problem. But that understanding of emotional aspect of a new owner of a company or a new startup of a company, say, or even an old boss that's been in that business, with their biases, how do we do emotional stuff to support that? How do we change ourselves to deal with their emotional side, and how can we use agility from an emotional perspective and then to help understand what their biases or complex business problem is? And so the emotional side and the emotional agility is just about having that emotional awareness of our own space and then theirs as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, Shelby. I think that we need to recognize as women that we have an emotional reputation.
Yep.
And if we can't overcome that, then you're just going to always be another quote woman. And I think it's important for us to do that. I look at this idea that, by the way, the complexity of all the issues that come into being successful are just overwhelming. And if you look at it, you really just need to break it down. For women, I think this is what I would suggest. In your organization, find the problem and solve it. That's the best way, because at the end of the day, business leaders really don't care if you're a man or a woman. They care if they got the outcome that they wanted. So for you individually, find a problem, The output is the solution. The outcome is the advancement of your career. Nobody moves faster in an organization than problem solvers. And so look for those opportunities to solve problems and be visible. Let leadership know that you solved that problem. This is my passive aggressive theory. If you solve the problem, not literally, get in their face and tell them, look, dude, I solved the problem. I'm a woman. I solved the problem. It doesn't matter if I'm man or woman. I solved the problem. So find some problems and solve them. What better way to advance your career?
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Lee. I think we're getting so much of nutrition for 2023 from you guys. Okay, there's this set of 3 questions from Kabir, I guess. Okay, Mubarak Ali, he says, thank you for your invaluable insights and extending my sincere thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. My questions are, what was your overriding takeaway from 2022? So what lessons did you learn from 2022? Which industry developments surprised you the most last year? And how can businesses foster and apply creativity in their workplace? So we'll start with the first. What was your overriding takeaway from 2022? Lee, let's start from you and then we'll go back to Shelby. Thank you.
For me, the overriding was the fact that we could work without being present. We could get things done as teams located in thousands of miles apart. So again, guess what? Communications. I learned that more than ever before, communications will spell the difference between success and failure. As we continue to work in a virtual world, and for those of you that are holding your breath that won't stay, go ahead and exhale, because we're going to be working virtually for a long time. We've proven that we can do it. And the cost associated with offices and with meeting space has been shown that it's not necessary. And for women, this is a breath of fresh air, because now those of you who are mothers as well, you get to work right with your children. What an opportunity. Well, maybe not. But the fact of the matter is, now we can get so much more done. Productivity, in my view, went up in terms of virtuality, because now people have the freedom to plan their day and then adjust their day without having to worry about the impact it's going to have on other people. I think my big takeaway was virtuality can work.
I would.
Great.
Yeah,
Shelby.
I would totally back up that one. You know, look how fast we pivoted. And I just wish sometimes organizations would go, well, we worked so damn hard in COVID to get everybody at home. You know, if you think about the fact that they sent everybody home, gave everybody laptops, computers, connection into an office, Teams, etc., how quick they did that and pivoted with it. And it took something like a virus to get them to think like that, where they don't apply the same kind of thinking in their everyday life. That for me was just startling, because I was like, why can't you do that every day? And I know there's other reasons why they can't, and I totally get that, but I think that adaptability and being able to work from home certainly was a great outstanding thing for me for 2022. But more importantly, I tell you what I did think about all of that as well personally, was how great we all come together as a connection, as a human connection. We had to all work on together, you know, outside of the office. We had to still make calls, still communicate with each other, back to communication. But how we had those connections and how beautiful they were, and we still felt connected. And like Lee said, it didn't mean we had to be co-located. So that was mine from 2022.
Common idea, the virtuality of everything we do.
Yeah.
Okay, second question says, which industry development surprised you the most last year, Shelby?
Oh, There's lots. For me, oh, where do I start with this one? Because there was lots of developments last year. I think Twitter, the whole Elon Musk Twitter development and how that was structured and played out was, I just sat there with amazement trying to keep up with it, and the exposure he did of data and of working ways. I think that just kind of surprised me. In a growth aspect development, for me, that has to be sort of like the medical realm, how the medical realm are taking on new sort of technologies and using great things like digital, for those that you don't know it, what we call digital twinning. It's where they basically in cyberspace or in like the cloud, they create the product that you currently have today, simulate it, a bit like robotics, and get it working in the background, and then spits out a lot of data so that in the industry. So I think that in the industry is digital twinning in any technology industry is amazing. And at the moment, I'm fascinated by the whole chat, which is not last year, this year, and you've just said it in the chat, which is Chat GCP, right? It's everywhere at the moment. So that's probably something for me to really get on point this year. But last year it was that.
The buzz now is ChatGPT.
Yeah, for sure.
Taking the academics by oh my, what a disruptive innovation. Yeah. Lee, which industry development surprised you the most from last year?
Yeah, I have two things that really impacted me from a perspective of seeing what could be done. We proved that we could remove a tremendous amount of bureaucracy and get things done quickly. I think the medical issue that Shelby referred to, what was able to be accomplished for that vaccine would have taken 8 to 10 years in the normal bureaucracy of our process. And instead, less than 2 years were invested, and we now have a very miraculous vaccine that allows us to be healthier, if you will. The other thing is the GBT. When I think about this idea of Chat GBT, and I spent some time talking to Sunil Prashar about that because I think he's going to be involved in it as we evolve into that process. But if we do this correctly, here's the beauty of this. If we really learn how to do that, we don't need any of us. We can just run on machines. We won't have to think. We won't have to. So I'm not convinced it's the way of the future, but I am convinced it could have a tremendous impact on my ability to solve problems. It is a solution provider that I can then validate and get to a solution much more quickly. So I think that ChatGPT is something we should learn to deal with and deal effectively with.
Thank you for that last one. We have to learn how to deal with it and deal with it effectively. Okay. The third question says, how can businesses foster and apply creativity in the workplace? And I think we should take this personal. How can we foster creativity, apply creativity in the workplace? Foster creativity, apply creativity individually, and then how can business do that? Shelby?
I think we need to encourage. I think we need to participate, be involved. I think we need to, back to something I said a bit earlier on, ask them, ask the question, I don't understand. They will quickly give you the answer. And so then you can come up with a creative strategy to help them foster more collaboration. I certainly adopt and like to go into organizations and put in a fun week. Some of the frameworks have like innovation weeks, etc., but I still like to have a fun week. And again, that's whether that's us hacking, that's us learning a new technology, an old framework, whatever that may be. I think we kind of need to foster and encourage that inside our own organization. And that is exactly to Grace's point. You do that. You need to talk about that and promote that. Otherwise, C-level suite executives, they don't care. All they care about is their bottom line, their capex and their opex and their bottom line, and that's it. They don't, you know, they don't want, get it done, tell me the cost later, what was the benefit to me? And you can encourage that by having those conversations to draw out the benefits.
Okay. Lee?
Yeah, I noticed in the chat, someone mentioned the lack of time spent on servant leadership. I think it's sort of the key to the future. To be an effective leader, you've got to be prepared to let go. You've got to be prepared to risk failure by allowing your individual workers to be effective. So I think if we can begin to show that ability to get more than the sum of the parts, servant leadership will allow you to do that. And to some extent, if you're an effective servant leader, you don't have to do any work. I like that part of it. And it allows people to grow in their position. Now, you have to have trust. Here we go again, trust in your people, because you're risking failure. You've got to remember, ultimately, failure rests on your shoulders if it's your part of the organization. So you've got to be able to trust the people that you're empowering via this servant leadership to be effective. So I think that way it exposes our capabilities beyond what we as an individual can accomplish, and maximizes that exponentially based on the number of people that we have built that level of servant leadership in.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And lots of times that goes back to their own personal self-belief bias, right? You know, leaders are taught that they are the people that are in power, and so we do as they tell us. But actually, servant leadership is more to that. You know, from my perspective, from an agility perspective, servant leadership is more of a philosophy. It's like, you know, we ask our leaders to share their power, you know, to guide. We ask them to harness all their soft skills. And you know, traditionally in organizations, those soft skills like listening and having empathy have never really been there. So when I come in and say, you know, let's talk about servant leadership and what that means to you and how you can be a great servant leader, it gets a lot of people quite emotional, because it thinks that we are trying to change their job completely, where they used to be in, you know, I'm telling you to go do, rather than saying, I trust you. Back to the trust again. I trust you and I can communicate well with you so that you can go and serve, you can serve me best by doing this, and then I can serve you and give you direction. And I think that's a very hard thing for a person in power to let go of.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Shelby. Thank you, Lee. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Any more? Or you could,
Yes, Grace, there's
I
still
see
questions
Cecilia.
in the chat. There's still questions in the chat.
Okay.
Um,
Cecilia, do you have a question?
Yes, I want to know what's your advice for women for this 2023, considering the trends in workplace in this year, after the pandemic, after the great resignation, the layoffs. What's the advice for women now?
Mine's simple, Cecilia. I find a problem and solve it. It's as simple as that. I think that opportunistic women will find this to be a very, very good time for them. I think there's chances here for women to really begin to make a name. We have a pizza place here in the U.S. It's the CEO is a woman. Okay. And I read about her all the time, and I've met her a couple of times, and she's very, very good. But the word on the street is she's CEO because her father started the business. No one takes time to look at what she's achieved. She's grown that business tenfold. That doesn't happen because you're the daughter of the owner. It happens because you're an effective business person. Find problems and solve them.
Yes, but I have a comment here, because sometimes I like that. It was my experience, my real experience. Sometimes you have an idea to solve a problem. You say that to your leaders and so, and they don't hear, they don't listen, and after that, someone else have the same idea, and all the credit it's going to that person. I have that in my experience, and it's not only in the past, it's in the present too. So
I
it's
think
not so good to say have a problem, find the problem and solve it, because many times you find the solution, but nobody listens to you.
Okay, now I'm almost in tears, Cecilia. That's a sad story, and I understand what you're saying. But here's the thing. If there's an issue, if a man comes up with the idea, it's innovative thinking. If a woman comes up with the idea, she's confused. And that's the attitude. I mean, I can't help it. I'm a man. What can I do? I can't change that. But the fact of the matter is, you have to be persistent. You're going to experience what Cecilia's experienced. You're gonna walk away from a meeting going, wait a minute, I said that 2 days ago, and then they laughed at me. But now he said it, it's the greatest idea since sliced bread. Well, so we have to understand it's going to take persistence. That's why I've coined the term passive aggressive. We can't be defeated because we have one experience like that, because you're going to have lots of them. And there's no question about that. So hang in there, look for those opportunities, and hopefully they'll recognize the value of what you add to the organization.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I will back that up. And I think I will say to you something like, when it's obvious that the goals cannot be reached because somebody might have stolen them from you, don't adjust your goals, adjust the outputs.
Wow. Olunfunke, sorry, I see a question in the chat box. Could you help read it out for the panelists? I think we have a few more minutes to go. Yeah.
Okay, there's a question here from Kabir. I think this is tilting towards inclusion. He says, I think we still have inclusion issues in organizations and entities, which prevents women from opportunities to grow up the ladder of leadership. So fostering an inclusive mindset in organizations. Okay, I take that again. So fostering an inclusive mindset in organizations at different levels can help to have inclusion, diversity, belonging, and belonging where we will have more women leaders. I think this sounds more like a follow-up with what we just spoke to now, talking about women and talking about what it looks like when you're contributing and how that is perceived within the organization. So your thoughts on this inclusion matter, yeah? Lee?
Yeah, I'm big on inclusion. I think that in fact, somehow I got on a committee, a committee for PMI. So I'm starting to look at this very carefully in terms of, is PMI satisfying the requirements of inclusion? I think, well, it goes beyond just inclusion. It has to go to the fact of that I'm allowing people to contribute. I'm not just including them for another pretty face. I'm allowing them to actually make contributions to the organization. So inclusion has to go beyond just being able to see you there. It has to be allowing you to perform.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm going to totally back up that as well, and also say, be aware of biases, and if you're a person in a senior role, let your female staff be here, use their voices, use them, promote them, diversify your team if you can, if you have the opportunity and you're in a position of hiring, but also celebrate individual strengths. Again, back to earlier, we don't celebrate enough either of the women or work people, the work they contribute to either.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're running out of time. Mitra, we see you. Thank you for joining. It's lovely seeing you on the call. Thank you so much, Mitra. I'll be handing over to Prayer to just round up, but don't forget our happy birthday song.
Yeah. Okay. So with this, I hand it over to Cecilia to felicitate our mentors of the day. Cecilia.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate, and receive, please, this certificate of appreciation. That's a great session. Thank you, Lee. And thank you to Shelby. You're welcome. Thank you to Shelby, and nice to meet you. And yes, and happy birthday. And yeah, and please receive this certificate of appreciation, and welcome to our network. You are welcome everywhere you want to stay here. Everyone to stay here. Thank you very much.
And now let us introduce our annual conference, and theme of the conference is the re-emergence, and it would be held on, again, virtual, and it will be on March 4th, 2023. We've already created the event, but we are still curating the event. So watch this space, watch our social media handles for more. And yeah, hope to see you in March. Next month, we are not meeting because we'll be preparing for this big conference. And everyone, thank you for joining us and helping us to celebrate our birthday, third birthday. And Shelby, happy birthday to you again. Good, we share the same day, same birthday. And yes, let us know what you think about the event. The Menti code has been posted on the chat window. And do take the poll and let us know your feedback so that we can improve. And we will catch up again in March. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy 2023. And with this, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, all of you. It was a great